Hi guys, welcome back to Tashida's Lit Lounge where literacy is lit. And we are continuing with Junie B. Turkeys we have loved and eaten and other thankful stuff. And we left off on chapter 7 where they were still completing their list of thankful things on the board. And so now we're on chapter 8 and it's called 3 Squeezes. Mr. Scary checked the clock again. Okay, it's time for our last thankful item before lunch, he said. Sheldons Story was so nice. I'm wondering if anyone else has an animal you're thankful for. Sheldon's hand shot up like a rocket. I do, Mr. Scary. I have 3 animals I am thankful for, and guess what? I got my picture taken with every single one of them. He quick leaned down to his thankful bag and he started searching through it. He stopped to glance up, and here's the part that you're really going to love. He said, all of the animals are Thanksgiving animals, Mr. Scary. All of them are turkeys. Mr. Scary looked happy at that news. Turkeys, he said. No kidding, Sheldon. That's great. I know it, said Sheldon. My Uncle Vern has turkeys at his house, and he took pictures of me with the 3 that I love the most. Mr. Scary smiled real big. This is perfect, Sheldon. I didn't even know that your Uncle Vern was a turkey farmer. Sheldon looked puzzled. He's not, he said. Uncle Vern and Aunt Bunny live out in the woods. He did a pause. They moved out there to get away from the law, he said. Mr. Scary cleared his throat, real nervous. Yes, well, that's fine, Sheldon, but that story is really none of our business, he said. Well, I think it's our business, shouted a loud voice. I think he should be arrested. All of our eyes turned to May. Her face looked shocked at us. Don't look at me. I didn't say that. It was him, she said. Then she quick pointed to Police Sergeant Chuck on Mr. Scary's desk. Mr. Scary rolled his eyes, very annoyed. He told May to button her lips. She started to sputter. But, Mr. Scary snapped his fingers at her. Then he turned back to Sheldon. Please forgive that interruption, Sheldon, he said. I really can't wait to see your turkey pictures. I've seen wild turkeys when I've been hiking, but I've never been close enough to get a picture. Really? Said Sheldon. That's odd. It's easy to get turkey pictures at Uncle Vern's. He brings them right inside his camper. Mr. Scary's face went funny, but he didn't say any words. Then all of a sudden, Sheldon found the pictures he was looking for in his thankful bag, and his whole face lighted up. I found them. Here they are. Here are the pictures of me and my 3 favorite turkeys at Uncle Vern's, he said. He took them out and put them in order. Number 1 is Gary Gobbles. Number 2 is Harry Gobbles. And number 3 is Larry Gobbles. He smiled real big at that one. Larry was from last year, he said. He is the turkey I loved the most. He jumped up and held Larry's picture for all of us to see. Look, everyone see him? See Larry? We leaned in closer. Then all of our faces went funny. Plus Mr. Scary's face went funny again too. Oh, well, this isn't what we expected, Sheldon, he said. This isn't a picture of a wild turkey in the woods, is it? He did a hard swallow. This is a picture of a cooked turkey on your plate, and you're eating it. Sheldon nodded real happy. Yes, he said. I know, at Thanksgiving, we take pictures of the delicious turkeys we have loved and eaten. And this is Larry from last year. He looked curious at our teacher. "Don't you take pictures of your Thanksgiving dinners?" he asked. Mr. Scary thought a minute. "Well, yes, now that I think about it, we do. Sheldon, we do take pictures of our Thanksgiving meals," he said. Sheldon smiled at Larry again. "Larry was my favorite," he said. "Look, see? Uncle Vern gave me the drumstick. In our family, it is an honor to get a Thanksgiving drumstick." Sheldon stood up straight and tall. "The drumstick is what a king gets," he said, real proud. I thought about that. "I've never gotten a drumstick," I said, real disappointed. "Me neither," said my friend Herbert. "My mother says if she gives me the drumstick, I'll slap it on the tablecloth." Sheldon beamed. "My Uncle Vern didn't care if I slopped it," he said. "He just told me, 'Enjoy it, Sheldon.'" Sheldon grinned real big. "And here's something else I love about Thanksgiving at Uncle Vern's," he said. "Before we eat, we all hold hands around the table and we squeeze each other's hands 3 times. He joined his 2 hands together, and he showed us how to squeeze. 1 squeeze, 2 squeezes, 3 squeezes, he said. 3 squeezes stands for 3 special words. He looked around the room. "Can anyone guess what the 3 special words are?" he asked. Room 1 thought and thought, but we could not come up with the 3 special words. Finally, Mr. Scary put his hand on Sheldon's shoulder and he smiled down at him. "I love you," he said. Sheldon stood there for a second. Then he smiled, kind of shy. "Well, I love you too," he said. "But can you guess what words the 3 squeezes stand for?" Mr. Scary stood there frozen. He did not make any more guesses. And so finally, Sheldon blurted it out. "Happy Turkey Day," he said. "The 3 squeezes stand for Happy Turkey Day. And so that's how come we always name the turkeys, because they make our Thanksgiving Day happy and delicious. And we don't ever want to forget them." I thought that over in my head. Room 1 thought it over too. Then, all at once, we started to clap, because that is the nicest way to remember a turkey that we ever heard of. Sheldon looked at his Thanksgiving pictures again. "Good old Larry from last year," he said, kind of quiet. Mr. Scary smiled. Then he walked to the board and he picked up his chalk and he wrote it on the board. 11. Good old Larry from last year. Room 1 clapped some more. Good old Sheldon Potts. And that's where he wrote number 11. And that is the end of chapter 8. We'll move on to chapter 9. Chapter 9 has a journal entry. Socks and other surprises. Wednesday. Dear first grade journal, today is the day for Thanksgiving feast in room 1. All of the children had to dress up like pilgrims or Native Americans at the first Thanksgiving. And so that is how come I told Mother, do not make me a pilgrim costume, and I mean it. I could not have been louder, by the way. Only, what do you know? Mother said she forgot I told her that. Plus, also, she gave me the costume job. She gave the costume job to my grandma, Helen Miller. And so, big surprise this morning, Helen bought the costume to my house. And oh no, it was a stupid pilgrim dress. I did a shriek at that thing, and then I ran down the hall and out the back door, and I hid behind the trash can next to the steps, but Mother found me speedy fast, And then me and her had a little tussle. And what do you know? Now I am sitting in my chair at school and I am wearing a stupid pilgrim dress. This is the worstest day of my entire school career. Your friend, Junie B. I do not want to be a pilgrim, and I mean it. I slumped in my seat, real gloom. Then bam! The morning got even worse on account of May came running into the room, and she was dressed like a Native American Indian girl. And that is what I wanted to be. I slumped lower in my chair. May hurried down our row, and she poked me in the arm. "Hello, Junie Jones." "Hello," she said. "Look at the Thanksgiving costume my mother made for me. I am a Native American Indian girl." She poked me again. "Look how great this costume is. Look at the fringe on the bottom of my dress. Look at the beads around the collar. Look at my cute moccasins. Look at the long braid in my hair." I turned my face away from her. "Look at the back of my head," I said. May ran around in front of me. "Guess what my name is, Junie Jones? My name is Chief May, chief of everybody, and I will be bossing around the Native Americans at the feast today. Plus, I will be bossing around the pilgrims too." After that, she looked me over. Let's see. "It looks like you are a little pilgrim girl," she said. "A little pilgrim girl is not the chief of anyone, is she? A little pilgrim girl is just a girl." She did a smirk. "What is your name, little pilgrim girl?" she asked. "Do you have a name?" I made squinty eyes at her. "My name is Get Out of My Face, Chief Nutball," I said back. I do not know where I came up with that great name. These things just come to me. May frowned her eyebrows. "I think your name is Pilgrim Grouchy," she said. After that, she swung her long braid in my face and she sat down in her seat. Just then, Mr. Scary came hurrying into the room. He had been talking to someone in the hall. His face beamed at our costumes. "Boys and girls, you look so great in your Thanksgiving outfits," he said. "We are going to have the best time with our families today." He held up one finger. "And don't forget, today the office is going to announce who won the Thankful contest." I did a loud groan. "Great," I grouched. "I'm already hottish and sweatish. Now all I need to do is win a pie and vomit." Suddenly a loud noise interrupted my grouching. Tap, 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 tap. It was coming from the hall outside room 1. All of the children ran to see, and whoa, it was Principal. And he was hammering a nail in our door with his shoe. All of our mouths came open at that sight. "I cannot believe my eyeballs," I said, real shocked. "If I nailed a hole in our door, I would get sent to Principal's office." I looked at Mr. Scary. "You know, that's true, by the way," I said. "I have been sent for way less than that." Sheldon raised his hand. "How come you're doing that, Principal?" he asked. "How come you're nailing a hole in our door with your shoe?" Just then, his eyes glanced down at Principal's sock foot. "Whoa! What kind of socks do you have on there?" he asked, real curious. Sheldon quick got on his hands and knees and looked closer. He raised his eyebrows. "Are those knee socks?" he asked. "My grandpa Ned Potts wears knee socks." I got on my hands and knees too. "My grandpa Frank Miller wears those kinds of socks too," I said. "We call them old man socks." Principal's face looked embarrassed at us. He said to please get away from his sock foot. Then he quick put his shoe back on. After that, he did a deep breath to settle down. Then, surprise, surprise, he reached into his pocket and he pulled out a giant blue ribbon and he hung it right on the doornail. "Congratulations to you, Room 1, he said real happy. "You won first place in this year's Thankful contest." All of Room 1 stood very still for a minute. That is called "We Were in a Daze," I believe. Then boom, we jumped and clapped and danced and yelled. We won, we won, we won, we yelled. Mr. Scary's face looked thrilled at us. I knew you could do it, he said. I told you that you were a special group. Me and Herbert linked our arms together and we skipped in a happy circle. We won, Junie B, hollered Herb. We won a giant first place blue ribbon and a big pumpkin pie. Then screech! All of our skipping came to a stop because we remembered the vomit part, that's why. Herb and I looked sickish at each other. Then all of the other children looked sickish too. Oh no, we said, pumpkin pie? We have to eat pumpkin pie? But then, ha! Good old Lenny came to the rescue because he already had the whole thing figured out. Don't worry, everyone. I've got a plan, he said, very excited. He pointed to the back of the room. We've got a giant cleanup sink back there. Remember, he said? All of us looked at the cleanup sink. So, we said. Lenny grinned. So, if anyone makes us eat pie, we'll just put it in our mouths. Then run to the cleanup sink and quick spit it out, he said. All of room one thought for a second. Then, whew, a big breath of relief whooshed right out of us. Because spitting pie in the cleanup sink is a genius, of course. We started smiling again. Hooray for Lenny! That guy thinks of everything. And that is the end of chapter 9. We're on to chapter 10, naming stuff. All of us skipped back to our seats. Principal walked to the front of the room, and he saw our thankful list on the board. We had added more stuff on Tuesday afternoon, so now it was 20 whole items long. Principal read the list out loud. 1. Cranberry jelly in a can. 2. Exploding biscuits. 3. Nipsey doodles. 4. Rainbow sprinkles. 5. Toilet paper. 6. Money. 7. Philip Johnny Bob. 8. Police Sergeant Chuck. 9. Snorsages. 10. Stinky. 11. Good old Larry from last year. 12. Cookies, but not the coconut kind. 13. Jose's remote control. 14. Lightning bugs. 15. The big box of 64 crayons. 16. Penguins. 17. Lenny's washcloth puppet. 18. Whipped cream that Roger accidentally squirted in his mouth before school. 19. Nasal spray. 20. The Cartoon Network. After he finished reading, Principal smiled real big. Boys and girls, this is the most honest list we have ever had in the school contest, he said. Thank you for telling us what children are really thankful for. Lenny turned around and looked at May. Then he did a big smirk. Nipsey Doodle's rule, he said. May turned his head back around. Just then, we heard feet in the hallway, and yay, yay, hooray, our favorite janitor came through the door. Gus Baloney! It's Gus Baloney, I shouted, real thrilled. Gus Baloney is the nicest janitor in the whole entire world. He was pushing a cart with a table and folding chairs on it. I jumped up so he could see me. Gus Baloney, it's me, it's Junie B. Jones, I yelled. Did you hear we won the thankful contest? Did you see the blue ribbon on our door? I hurried to the front of the room. What do you have there, Gus Baloney? Is that folding chairs for our feast today? 'Cause maybe I could help you with them. Gus Baloney did a chuckle at me. Well, Junie B, don't you look nice today, he said. You're all dressed up like a pilgrim girl. I nodded. Yes, I know, I said. At first, I did not want to be a Pilgrim girl, and so me and Mother had a tussle behind the trash can. Only now, I am hardly even sweaty. Plus, also, I can spit pie in the cleanup sink, and so my whole entire mood got better. Gus Valoni looked confused at me. Principal looked confused too. Mr. Scary walked me back to my seat and he said for me to please stay put. After that, Principal helped Gus Valoni and Mr. Scary set up the tables and chairs, and wait till you hear this, all of our guests had signed up to bring the feast food. So room 1 didn't have to make a thing. I tapped on my friend Herbert. What kind of food is your mother bringing? I asked. My mother and my grandma Miller are bringing cranberry jelly. Herbert turned around. My mother has to work today, but my grandmother is bringing carrot sticks. Oh boy, I said. I love carrot sticks, Lenny grinned. Me too, he said. My grandmother is coming to the feast, but she's a terrible cook, so I signed her up for napkins. Sheldon heard us talking. My Uncle Vern is coming with my Grandpa Ned Potts, and they're bringing tater tots, he said. I did a gasp at that delicious news. Yummy, yum, yum, I said. Tater tots. May threw her head back. Pilgrims and Indians did not eat tater tots, she said, real annoyed. My mother is bringing the real kind of food that they ate at the first Thanksgiving. She stood up at her desk and she swung her long braid again. My mother is bringing squash and beans and stewed onions, she said real proud. After that, room 1 got very quiet. We were thinking about stewed onions, I believe. Then one by one, we all turned around and we looked at the cleanup sink again. I glanced at Lenny. That sink is going to get a real workout today, I said. Just then we heard more footsteps in the hall, and yippee, yippee! Our first Thanksgiving guest was here. It was Lucille's Richie Nana, and she brought her real actual chef guy with her. The chef guy was wearing a tall white hat and a long apron. It was all the way to his knees almost. Also, he was carrying a giant silver tray with a shiny lid on the top. He put the tray on the feast table and he pulled off the lid. And wow, wow, wow. It was the giantest turkey I ever saw. We ran to the table. Whoa, said Roger. How much does that big boy weigh? How much did it cost? Said Lenny. Can I have the drumstick? Asked Herb. What's his name? Said Sheldon. The Richie Nana started to sputter. Oh dear, well, let's see. I didn't really... shop for it myself, so I don't know what it weighs or what it cost, and I don't think it has a name, she said. She raised her eyebrows at the chef guy. Does it? She asked. I thought for a second. Then I clapped my hands. I've got an idea. Let's name him Mr. Turkey Pants, I said. Then I laughed and laughed, and all of room 1 laughed too. Names are always funnier if you add the word pants on the end of them. Mr. Grandpa Frank Miller taught me that lesson. Just then, another guest came through the door. It was Herbert's grandmother, and she had a big white bowl full of carrot sticks. Whoa, that is a lot of carrot sticks, madam, I said. Sheldon looked at me and grinned. What's their name, Junie B? He asked. I thought again. Their name is Mr. Crunchy Pants, I said. After that, all of us laughed even more. Mr. Scary said, go back to our seats. Boys and girls, I know it's fun to have our families at Thanksgiving feast today, but we need to be on our best behavior for them, remember? His eyes zoomed in on me. And Junie B, I'm pretty sure we're finished naming the food, okay? I did a salute. Aye, aye, Captain, I said. I am a hoot. Just then, I turned my head and I saw my mother come in with Grandma Helen Miller, and yippee, my Grandpa Frank Miller came too. They put a big bowl of jiggly cranberry jelly on the table. Hey, look, it's Mr. Jigglepants, I shouted. Mr. Scary did a frown at me. Oh, Junie B, what are you doing? Mother and Grandma Miller frowned too. Grandpa laughed real loud. Then Grandma poked him with her elbow. I slid way down in my chair. Oops, I said. Sorry. Then I covered my mouth with my hand, and I didn't name food for the rest of the day. And that is the end of chapter 10. Let's take a quick tea break. Chapter 11, The Feast. May's mother was the last guest to come to our room. She was carrying 3 bags of food. I did a sniff. Something did not smell delicious. It was the stewed onions, I believe. Also, it was the beans and squash. My stomach did a flip-flop at those stinky smells. I took some deep breaths to try to calm it down. Here is a helpful hint. Deep breathing does not work that good when you are smelling stink. Finally, I said the word block, and I held my nose. Mr. Scary snapped his fingers at me. That meant, please let go of your nose, I think. After all the guests were sitting down, Mr. Scary said a welcome speech to them. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our feast, he said. Room 1 would like to thank you for bringing this delicious food to help us celebrate Thanksgiving. After that, he gave the children a nod, and all of us shouted, "Thank you!" A lot of rehearsing had gone into that. This is going to be a wonderful day, said Mr. Scary. So please grab a plate and let's get started. We let our guests go first. That is some kind of guest rule, apparently. Room 1 lined up behind them. Only too bad for me, because someone took the lid off the stewy, pewy onions, and the smell almost knocked me down. My stomach felt sickish and rumbly. I hurried to the end of the food line. Mr. Scary saw me go, but this time, he did not get mad. Instead, he made an announcement to all of the children. Boys and girls, today is a celebration of all things we're thankful for. And since each of us is thankful for different kinds of foods, just take the food you love the most and enjoy every single bite. All of us did a deep breath of relief. Then things got even better because Mr. Scary walked over to the supply closet and he pulled out one more bag of food for our Thanksgiving feast. And its name was Nipsey Doodles, shouted Lenny. Mr. Scary bought Nipsey Doodles? He ran to Mr. Scary and did a high five. After that, we could not wait to get our plates of food. It was the tastiest Thanksgiving dinner I ever even ate. I had turkey and carrot sticks and Nipsey Doodles and cranberry jelly. Herb had turkey and carrot sticks and 2 giant plops of applesauce. Lenny just had Nipsey Doodles, and that's all. Plus, also, he took 4 napkins. It will make my grandmother feel good, he said. After we finished eating, all of the children walked around the room, and we thanked our families for the food they bought. Thank you for your crunchy carrot sticks, I said to Herb's grandmother. Thank you for your hugey big turkey, I said to Lucille's Richie Nana. Your napkins were delicious, I said to Lenny's grandmother. After that, I thanked Mother and Grandma Miller for the cranberry jelly. Then Grandpa Frank Miller picked me up and he spun me all around real happy. Frank would be fun in my real, actual class, I believe. After we got done with our thank yous, Mr. Scary said he had one more happy surprise for us. Then he looked in the hallway and he did a nod. And guess who came in next? Mrs. Gootsman, I shouted. It's Mrs. Gladys Gootsman. Mrs. Gootsman is the bestest lunch lady in the whole entire world. I sprang out of my seat. Hello, Gladys Gootsman. It's me. It's Junie B. Jones. Mrs. Gootsman was holding 2 pie boxes in her hand. She put them down and waved at me. Hello, Junie B. Jones. Hello, children, she said. Congratulations on winning the thankful contest. She took out a pumpkin pie and she held it up for everyone to see. Boys and girls, I baked these pumpkin pies for you myself. And I used my own family recipe, she said. These pies will just melt in your mouth. Lenny looked at me and rolled his eyes. Mine will be melting in the cleanup sink, he said. Ditto, I said. Ditto is the grown-up word for mine will be melting in the cleanup sink too. Herb's face looked bluckish and sickish. I just want to get it over with, he said. Lenny nodded. Let's do it, he said. Let's hurry up and get our pie. And then we'll do a quick spit in the cleanup sink and it will be all over. Mrs. Gootsman started dishing out the pie. Me and Herb and Lenny took a deep breath. Then we quick ran to the pie table and we each grabbed a plate and we ran to the cleanup sink speedy fast. We looked at the pie and made sick faces. Then we took another deep breath and ready, set, go. All of us shoved some pie in our mouths. After that, we stood there very still and we let it just sit there. It felt cold and squishy. I smacked my lips a little bit. Herb and Lenny smacked their lips too. Then 1, 2, 3, gulp. We swallowed our pie at the exact same time and wow, that stuff was delicious. I tell you, my head had confusion in it. Wait, hold it, I don't get it, I said. I hate pumpkin pie, but this pumpkin pie tastes delightful. Herb smacked some more. Yes, he said, it does taste delightful. Lenny did not talk. He was busy licking his plate. After he finished, he looked up and smiled. Mrs. Gootsman is magic, he said. All of us laughed real happy, because that was the answer. Gladys Gootsman is magic. We hurried back to the pie table for seconds. Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, I said real loud. This is the bestest first prize I ever ate. I ran and hugged her real happy. Mrs. Gootsman did a chuckle. Then she leaned down and she hugged me back. And she said, don't call her Gladys. And now for the last chapter, chapter 12. Happy Turkey Day. After all the pie was gone, I threw my plate in Mr. Scary's trash can and oh dear, that's when I saw him. Philip Johnny Bob was still sitting on the desk with Police Sergeant Chuck, and I had forgotten all about that guy. I ran over and picked him up, then I hugged him real tight. Philip, I said, how did I forget you? You have been sitting there for 2 whole days and you did not have one thing to eat. Philip nodded his head. I know it, he said. I would really like some cranberry jelly right now. I know you would, Phil, but you can't have cranberry jelly, remember? I said. We tried that last Thanksgiving and you still have the cranberry stain on your mouth. Phil quick wiped his face. Oh yeah, right, he said. He looked at the feast table again. Is there anything I can eat over there? he said. I did a sigh. I don't know, Phil, I said. At home, I just shove a peanut up your trunk, but no one brought nuts to the feast today. I pointed to the carrot sticks. What about those, Phil? Would you like me to put a carrot up your trunk? I asked. Phil shook his head no. That would look gross, he said. I nodded. Yes, you're right, I said. It would look gross. I looked around. Then all of a sudden, I spotted a brand new bag of Nipsey Doodles. They were sitting on Mr. Scary's desk, and a Nipsey Doodle was just the right size for Phil. I quick opened the bag and I put a doodle in his trunk. Yum, said Philip. This doodle is delicious. Thank you, Junie B, thank you. Just then a voice shouted in my ear, Hey, hold it. Those doodles don't belong to you, mister. You are under arrest. I quick spun around. The voice was coming from May, but she was pointing to Police Sergeant Chuck. She hurried to Mr. Scary's desk and she quick picked him up, and then boom, out of nowhere, Chuck bopped Phil in the head with his trunk. You stole a Nipsey Doodle, and stealing is against the law, he said. Then May tried to take the doodle right out of Philip's trunk, but Philip ducked around her. Everyone looked to see the commotion. Mr. Scary frowned real big. May started to holler. None of this is my fault, she said. Peanut Butter and Johnny has a Nipsey Doodle in his trunk, and Junie B stole it for him. I stamped my foot. No, I did not, I said. Nipsey Doodles are part of our Thanksgiving feast, and feast food is for sharing. May stamped her foot too. But that wasn't sharing food, Junie Jones said. Junie Jones. That was a brand new bag, and it belonged to Mr. Scary. Then May tried to pull Phil away from me, but I pulled him back. Plus, Philip bopped Chuck on his head, and then all of us got ready to wrestle. Only before we could even get started, Mr. Scary jumped in between us, and he stopped us from bopping each other. Girls, girls, he said, that's enough. Have you forgotten that we have guests? Me and May looked at our guests. May's mother was frowning at us. Mother and Grandma Miller were frowning again, too. I glanced at my grandpa, Frank Miller. He did a wink. That was refreshing. Mr. Scary kept on talking. I really don't understand what gets into you girls when you pick up those elephants, he said. It's such a puzzle to me. I thought for a second. Then I did a little shrug. I don't know why it's a puzzle, I said. Me and May are just playing with our elephants, and elephants like to bop each other. May nodded her head. Yes, she said. That's what their trunks are for. Trunks are for bopping. That's how elephants play. I thought some more. Then I looked at May. Yeah, only maybe Mr. Scary doesn't know that, May, I said. Maybe he doesn't have an elephant at home. May did a pause. Oh, right, she said. I never thought of that. She looked back at Mr. Scary. Well, anyway, that's how elephants play, she said. And so Junie Jones and I automatically know that. I smiled. Yes, I said, we do. Then all of a sudden, blink, a light bulb went off in my head. I did a gasp. Mr. Scary, you were right, I said. Even though May and I are very different from each other, we both love elephants. And so that is how come we were almost being friends just now, because we have something in common, just like the Pilgrims and the Native Americans. May looked curious at me. Yeah, but we're not really friends, right, Junie Jones? She said. It was just this one time, correct? Correct, I said back. We can't be friends forever, May. That would be ridiculous. We don't even like each other. May got relief in her face. Whew. Okay, good, she said, because I really like being different from you. I know it, May. I like being different from you too, I said. Very different. May smiled. I smiled back. Then I tried to do a fist bump with her, but she did not see it coming and I accidentally hit her in the arm. Ow, she said. Sorry, I said. May shrugged her shoulders. Then she rubbed it off. After that, we both skipped to our seats with our elephants and we hugged our elephants real tight. It was a lovely moment, I think. But all of a sudden, it got interrupted by shouting. I quick looked up. It was Sheldon and Uncle Vern and Grandpa Ned Potts. Happy Turkey Day! Happy Turkey Day! They shouted real loud. They were holding hands in the front of the room and they were doing 3 squeezes. All of the children stood up. We grinned from ear to ear. Happy Turkey Day, we shouted back. Mr. Scary looked at room 1. His face got beamy and proud. He was thankful for us, I believe. And that is the end of Junie B. Jones, Turkeys We Have Loved and Eaten, and Other Thankful Stuff by Barbara Park, illustrated by Denise Bruncas. I really hope you enjoyed our 2nd chapter book. We have more to come, and I will be adding to the library, so keep checking back. Subscribe, like, and share because I am building our library and there is books on here that you will enjoy. I'm sure of it. So books are coming that you will enjoy. So keep checking in to Tashita's Lit Lounge. See you soon.